Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Jackie Brenner, a pre-med student who has enjoyed meeting other STEM students from around the world through my TikTok and Discord STEMPotential. Before we get started, a few technical items. If your connection is lost, please simply log in again through the same link provided in the Discord. Once the live viewing has concluded, we will post a link to the recording of the webinar on STEMPotential. Also, we recommend you hide all non-video participants to clear up the screen. If you'd like to ask a question, please submit it at any time via the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We will collect these questions and answer as many as possible during the Q&A portion of our discussion. Before we proceed to the panel discussion, I would like to give you a brief background about STEMPotential. And I'm sorry if you're now hearing this for the fourth time. While in school, many of my fellow pre-medical students, especially women, were hesitant or even afraid of pursuing their studies and a career in STEM. They lacked access to mentors and information from professionals who were already in their careers. This led me to create STEMPotential, an online Discord that provides a network for all students to form immediate bonds and share unique perspectives from diverse backgrounds and ask many questions. Discord members can act as mentors and mentees as they progress along the stages of their education while also finding friends with common interests, just like Allie. We envision a community of like-minded people excited to build their network and use every avenue to broaden their perspectives of STEM. As the saying goes, knowledge is power. Because March is Women's History Month, I'm hosting this two-day webinar event with a variety of female panelists. Yesterday, it highlighted MDs and PhDs. We just had the session with medical students, and now we have the master's and PhD students, followed by one after. I wanted to give kids the opportunity to hear the journey of women in STEM and be inspired. And now to our panelists. Please turn on your cameras and let us know if you have any trouble in the chat. I am proud and humbled to have assembled a group of incredibly successful women. Each one will give a brief 5-minute overview about themselves, and then we will have a 25 to 30-minute Q&A. I want to also introduce Ashini Panchal, who has been a partner on this project with me. She is in the 7-year med program and is currently doing research in California. She will be taking over the second half of the Q&A session. Lauren graduated from St. John's College with a BA in liberal arts and is currently pursuing a MBA and MS in mathematics at Claremont Graduate University. Jamie is currently pursuing a PhD in aerospace engineering at the University of Boulder, Colorado Boulder, sorry. She graduated from MIT with a BS in aerospace engineering and architecture and the UC Boulder with a master's in computer science. Lastly, we have Allie, who graduated from MIT with a bachelor's in science in computer science and electrical engineering, as well as a master's of engineering. She is currently a senior developer relations engineer at New Relic. Now let's get started. Lauren, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Lauren. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you guys. I'm really excited. Thank you for my introduction, Jackie. To further expand on who I am, what I do, I've actually created a nonprofit, and our focus is on creating games to make complex physics and complex math more accessible for students in general. So what we're doing is we're trying to make the Maxwell equations a lot of fun and interactive. So we're trying to change how learning is done. So it's almost I like to say it's like Khan Academy if Khan Academy was a game. So that's what I do on top of my dual program, on top of all of the extra side things that I do. Much like Jackie, I'm on social media. I tutor. I work full time. It's a lot. But yeah, so that's me.
We need a little fun fact.
Oh, a fun fact. Fun fact about me. Let's see. In undergrad, I worked 6 jobs. That's a fun fact. It's a crazy fact. But yeah, I did 6 jobs, worked full time for 3 of them, balance that with a full-time schedule, like school schedule as well.
You're absolutely incredible. All right, Jamie.
So hello, as mentioned, my name is Jamie, and I'm also so excited and also honored to be here. So thank you very much. I'm going to give a bit of background. So I came to the United States quite some years ago to attend MIT. I was very lucky in that I was able to participate in a lot of undergraduate research through MIT's Undergraduate Research Opportunities Program. So through several of these research opportunities, which is where as an undergrad, you are able to participate in research that is happening in one of the labs at MIT. This is typically funded. I found a UROP, which is what we call them, that really worked for me in actually the civil engineering department, where I worked on building a 3D printed different artificial bone. And I would say that that is the research experience that kind of landed me where I am today. After MIT immediately though, I found it very challenging and definitely needed a break. So I spent a year in quant finance in Chicago, which was fun, but definitely not what I wanted to do with my life forever. And then took a year out just to decompress and avoid complete burnout. That takes me to where I am and what I'm doing now. As mentioned, I'm a PhD student at the University of Colorado in Boulder, and I am in the bioastronautics laboratory, where my research is focused around broadly humans in aerospace. So my MS thesis kind of focused on strapping electrodes to people's heads, which made them better at seeing things. If you're interested in this, I'm more than happy to talk more about it offline. My PhD thesis is currently centered around modeling orientation perception. So spatial orientation illusions are something that can be very problematic when it comes to piloting a plane or spacecraft. An example would be is if you've ever been driving, you're sitting at a stoplight and the car next to you starts moving forward, and for a split second, it feels like you are moving as well. This is an illusion where, based on what you are seeing, you think you are in a motion that you are not actually in. My PhD thesis essentially hopes to be able to better understand and also predict when such orientation illusions happen and how we can design control systems for aircraft and spacecraft that are able to better avoid those associated mishaps or crashes that may arise from an illusion. So sorry, that was like the long-winded version of what I'm doing now. As for a fun fact, after moving to Boulder, I fell in love with skiing. The local hill is just 45 minutes away, and I actually went this morning before this panel.
Amazing. Well, we have so much to discuss here today. Last but not least, Allie.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Okay, so if you're wondering who I am and why I'm here in person, we are actually in person because I am tech support for and set up this entire tech support for this. So if you see me get up and walk away or look up or look down, I'm making sure everything is running smoothly. So hi, my name is Allie. I'm at Ending with Allie on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, everything. Follow me there if you like. I am helping Jackie with STEMPotential. I am server mom. I do everything the tech related. But yeah, I come from a long line of engineers and went to MIT to study computer science and electrical engineering, where I fell in love with the ability to help people and specifically helping people at hackathons in the tech community. And I decided to make that my full-time passion after I got my master's degree in engineering with a focus in computer systems and engineering. I went on to work as a developer relations engineer in the crypto space, as well as in the signing on space, the administration space, and now I'm working in the observability space. And my job right now is to Twitch stream about working on cool things in tech. So I'm super excited to be here and making sure everything is working well. Again, I apologize if I'm distracted. I'm making sure everything is working. So,
well, we have such an amazing panel of women today with such different backgrounds and incredible interests. So now we will begin the Q&A portion. So just for a quick reminder, you can ask questions in the chat and I will be monitoring them and making sure I get to them. After each question, we would ask one panelist to respond, and then if you can each follow, that would be great. So to get started, I wanted to ask, how has being a woman influenced your experience in tech?
Well, I can go first if no one else minds. I think that a big impact that specifically being a woman in tech is, both in terms of how I feel and what other people have told me, is that I always feel like I have to make sure that I'm asking for things. I feel like I always have to make sure I'm asking for a promotion, a paper authorship, making sure that I'm attending a conference or giving a presentation in a way that I'm not 100% sure all of my peers have to. I do appreciate, I've definitely been told many times, oh, men are much more likely to negotiate a job offer than a woman. And I feel like because I've heard so many things like that, I feel a lot of pressure to make sure that I'm also doing all the asking I can.
I can go in and talk a little bit about, I wasn't very cognitively aware of like my gender discrepancy until I got into the working world, because my major at MIT had a large percentage of women. So it was generally a pretty balanced classroom many times. However, as I got more into more advanced topics, the number of women in the classrooms, because I was going more into back-end engineering, more into low-level concepts, then it was just me and like 3 other women. But I still didn't really realize there was a discrepancy until I got into the working world and realized, oh, like these men aren't listening to me. Hello. So it's definitely made me a little bit feistier in meetings, a little snappier. I'm not willing to put up with BS, in all honesty. And if someone if someone says like the same thing I said, I'll say, excuse me, I said that first. Let's get it straight. I'm pretty snappy.
I'm scared of her.
I'm not business savvy. So
following off of that, Lauren, I know you work a lot with, I mean, obviously you're getting your master's in math and your MBA, but we talked a little bit about how you were writing a portion of that textbook. So I was wondering how those experiences also have influenced, you know, being a woman specifically in that space.
So what Jackie's talking about is I'm also helping write a new way of approaching special relativity. So I'm assisting in writing textbooks. So that's what I also do on the side of the many things I do. But I will echo that it is difficult, especially being a woman of color in STEM. It's been difficult for me because it's like I stand out in every classroom. And especially in undergrad, it was very difficult for me because I always had to be on point. I was our senior math assistant, so I felt like I had to be perfect. And I can really echo the sentiments of my fellow panelists who are saying like, I had to be very forthright. I had to be very present for people to see me, but also understand like I'm not an aggressive person. I just want to be acknowledged in what I'm doing. And that's also difficult when you're writing a paper and you're working with other professionals, who have their PhDs. I'm in my master's program. This is a very unique situation. Usually you need a PhD to write something like this. So I was offered an opportunity, which means that I have to really vocalize like where I am, what my contributions are, and how this all works together. Now, this is really different on the other end in the nonprofit that I created, because I wanted to make sure that no one else had to feel this way. So my nonprofit is very open and welcoming, and I really make sure that I have everything that my employees need, especially in contracts. I had to get very familiar with contracts, how those work, and how to provide safety and security for my employees. So it's like 2 different things.
Going off of the idea of, being forthright and having to balance so much, what's your advice on being heard? Because in your space, it's obviously, male dominated, and all of you are exploring such different fields. So what's your advice in terms of, being heard and getting what you want, as Allie does?
I mean, my advice there is have a group of people who can definitely back you up. When I was working at companies where I felt like I wasn't being included in conversations because for no reason or concerned about my standing, I would turn to my group and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Do you think you could back me up when I say this, to make sure that my point is not just, it's not a singular point for me, but it's a point from multiple people. So always making sure that I had support.
I definitely want to echo that. Like, especially in school, I had to make sure that I wasn't just connected with my professors, but also people in the administration, because there were times when I needed further assistance, and the people in the administration were amazing and created this backbone of support that allowed me to continue. That's how I was able to get all these ridiculous jobs, because I couldn't afford my school. So I had to say, like, you know, how can I work more? Like, I can work, I can do stuff. And they were able to provide me with more resources, and they helped me so that way I could continue. So I definitely agree with what Ali's saying, and I really resonate with what you're saying.
On a more broad note, another thing that I cannot stress enough is don't be afraid to outright say, oh, I did this, or I contributed X and Y, even if no one is asking. Because again, I don't know if everyone's experience is like this, but I definitely feel like no one is just going to assume that you did it, particularly if you look very different from everyone else in the room. So if you feel like you've made a big contribution or want the next part of a project or want to do a certain part, you have to step up and not be afraid to say it. Like, it can be a bit uncomfortable kind of tooting your own horn, but I think that to get the appropriate credit for what you've done, it's something you have to learn to do, unfortunately.
I completely agree with Jamie. Like, I see that. I do this now, like, just in life. I'm like, no, I clean that plate. But it's like, it's just really true. You have to know your worth and say, like, this was what I do. This is what I did. I know that I've been very humble on here saying, like, this is kind of, I do some things, but trust me, in the workplace, I'm like, here's my itemized list of everything that I'm doing, because I want recognition, and in the end, that's your paycheck as well.
Yeah, and just like directly on that literally just happened to me at work, where I was the only person that was like doing community management and managing our social media and doing team events and making sure that everything was running smoothly, on top of trying to write blog posts, on top, and for my job it's very outreach focused, on top of streaming and on top of all the work that everyone else was doing. And then one day I just sat down and said, hey everyone, here's my normal day. Is this what you're doing? And then went to my manager and said, hey, I have too much on my plate right now. It's clear that not everyone else is doing everything that I'm doing. I need this to be distributed more, because I can barely do this.
After listening to all of you guys answer that question, I keep thinking in my head, speaking up. And what comes to mind is you guys are all such powerful women. And for example, Lauren, you have done so much, but when I met you, you are the most humble person I have ever met. And I had no idea you balance so much. So my question is, how do you stay motivated? Like, who inspires you to, be able to speak up? Because we have so many people in this chat who, how do you find your voice and believe in yourself?
Do you want me to go for that one?
Yeah, go for it. What do you think?
I don't know, because I'm still trying to figure that out. Who inspires me? No one. I'm just tired. I am sorry, but I'm just tired. And when people don't give me the recognition I deserve, I'm like, I'm done. Listen, I did X, Y, and Z. Like, I don't know what else you want. I'm a very straightforward kind of person, and I'm very lucky to have that privilege that in tech, and especially my team, if I'm like struggling, I can say, hey manager, like, here's the thing that I'm having a problem with. Like, I'm really tired. Like, I can't do this. And I would like to put this off. Or like, what keeps me going is just like, I know that I'm not the best at my job. I know that there's still a lot for me to get better at. And a year ago, I would have told you I have nothing to keep going for. And today I'm not sure what's pushing me, but it might be the fact that I found a really amazing group of people that are always telling me, like Jackie, for example, that are always just trying to do more things. And I want to stay caught up, and I want to make sure that I'm building a really successful future so that I can go do things that I actually want to do, which, as much as I love my job, it'd be pretty cool to be able to make TikToks all the time. It would be pretty dope, but that doesn't put food on the plate, and so food on my plate. So that's what drives me, is just wanting to be a better person, wanting to establish myself more, wanting to know more secrets. Oh my God, there's so many secrets in the world. Doesn't that make you want to know things? Like, you got to be really good to get those secrets. I'm not kidding. I keep it real.
You know, you trust me, you do. She keeps me.
I appreciate you. But yeah, I totally understand what you're talking about. I really resonate with what Ellie's saying in general. It's like, to find, I'm older. I'm 31. Like, I'm old, especially to be in like math, like, you know, to be going through my MS program, to be doing my MBA. I was an older student. So for me to struggle with my voice, I was like embarrassed for a while. But, you know, it comes out when you know, like when you least expect it. Like, all of a sudden it came out last year, and I was like, I'm doing this. I'm creating my nonprofit because I can't find a job willing to pay what I believe I deserve. And I don't like this work atmosphere. So I'm going to create a work atmosphere that I like, that I know will help people flourish. So, I mean, that's where my voice came in, and I was like, I'm going to create this because I don't see it. So I'm going to create it. And I think that's something that a lot of us don't know, that that's also a possibility. You can be the change that you want to see. You can create the world that you want to be in. It doesn't seem like it that sometimes, but it's like, you can do it.
Circling back to the original question, I guess in terms of staying motivated, something that helps a lot is having a really good, this has come up before, support network and good friends. It definitely changes from person to person, but I found that surrounding myself with the right people can make a huge difference in terms of people, or even women I look up to, or women in my lab who are my peers. So also like, wait, no, we definitely have to speak up and take ownership of what we've done more often than we should. And kind of people that you can kind of check in with and be like, wait, no, this is normal and we need to keep doing it.
Oh wait, Jackie, I think you're muted.
Sorry about that.
That was my bad. I was typing.
Tech girl. Anyway, to echo what Jamie was saying, and to continue along the lines of staying motivated and what career to pursue, I know I've had this question of, you know, I'm going into medicine, so I go to medical school and I know I'm gonna be a doctor, hopefully. But for all of you, how do you kind of craft your career, and what advice do you have for someone who wants to go into something that's not medicine? I think it's so important to really give, like, what's your advice on going into that field, and what are you supposed to do for internships, and just what's the advice in exploring your interests?
Yeah. Figuring out what you want to do with your career. Again, like a year ago, I didn't know what was pushing me, and I'm still trying to figure out what my next steps are. But when you leave college, you don't have to know what you want to do at the end of the day. You don't have to know exactly what your golden arches look like. What you should know is just maybe what excites you. And if you don't know, use your first few jobs as an opportunity to explore different fields and different perspectives. And like planning forward as you spend more time in industry or in education or in research, you'll slowly see that there's a lot more opportunities out there beyond just what they tell you about in school. Like, I didn't know my job existed until after I left school, basically. So I would definitely spend some time in industry, and it's okay to not know what you want to do, and then sort of figure out and take the time. One of the things that people in tech have been having this on and off discussion with is like the obsession with knowledge, like knowing where you're going in your youth. And it's totally okay to be 25 and not know what you're doing next. It's totally okay to be 25 and not have a multi-million-dollar company. It's okay to be 25 and not be the best at something. Those are just such extreme edge cases that you can't compare yourself to those people. You need to sort of, Jamie, you may have heard Will say this, but you got to row your own boat and you got to stay focused right in front of you and what's going on in your world and not in the world around you. So don't go out there and compare yourself to the people around you. And they're like, I know what I'm doing now and I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. Like, I promise you they're saying that, but I promise you they don't know what they're doing. So just take some steps at a time. And if you know what you want to do, that's great. Work towards it. And just take as many opportunities as you can to figure out what exactly you want to do.
Yeah, to echo that, like if you know what you want to do, you are part of the very, very lucky minority. I have bounced around a lot from kind of at MIT. I was like, I don't know, do I want to do aerospace engineering or architecture? And then went into finance and was like, this is not for me, but I'm glad I tried it. It definitely takes a while for some people to figure out what they want, and that's totally fine. That being said, if you would like to do a research-based or funded engineering PhD, the best advice that I can give as someone who's in such a program is to seek out opportunities to participate in research as an undergrad as much as you can. And on that note, if you are able to, definitely make sure you stay in touch with the professors who are either officiating or helping out. Even though your mentor might be a grad student, you should have some contact with a professor who is ultimately going to help guide you through the PhD application process and also write letters of recommendation. So whether that is just staying in touch with the professor and just saying in an email, hi, I am doing research in your lab and I would like a letter of recommendation at some point, is extremely important and can be very, very helpful later down the line.
I just want to echo what Jamie's saying because it's so vital. It's so vital to have those relationships with your professors, your junior, senior. I knew my junior year that I had to build those relationships because I was like, I'm going to grad school. So even if I didn't know what I was going to do, I was like, you guys are getting to know me because I'm definitely going to need you when I'm applying. So I created relationships, especially with STEM professors. I knew towards the end of my senior year, I was going into math. And I knew because I was in a liberal arts college, getting a liberal arts degree, I was going to have to continue taking math courses after I graduated to get into my field, which I did. And I knew that I wanted to teach. So then I was like, I'm going to hone my craft. I'm going to do extra courses. I'm going to redo my math and really make sure that this is something that I want to do. So on top of everything else, you know, balancing your schedule. I know it seems like a lot when you're looking at your school schedule and you're thinking, and now I have to get to know these professors. But honestly, it starts as simply as what Jamie was saying, like just with an email, just with a hello or an extra moment between courses where you just say like, hey, can I have a moment of your time just to talk to you?
And going off of that, like what were the skills you learned as an undergrad that proved most helpful like to you in school now or getting your PhD or in the working world?
My biggest tip is be transparent. I have been in really like not insane, but like I went into a class knowing like, hey, like I'm not going to do well in this class. And I know this, and I know I'm going to need help in this class. So I went to the professor from early on, and I went to the professor and I said, hey, hi, my name is Allie. I'm really excited to be taking your course, but I'm really concerned because I know that this course is not my place of strength. So I was wondering how you would recommend for me to approach this course properly, given that this is one of my weaknesses. And that ended up like straight up the professor came to me, he's like, okay, Allie, do you want to come? I'll come in on the weekends and give you extra office hours. You can invite your friends. Like, we'll meet after every exam to make sure you really understand the work. Like, and this has happened with multiple professors. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. When I'm having issues at work, I tell my manager and I say, hey, here's what's happening and here's why my work is going to be late. Here's what's happening and here's why I'm struggling with this. Here are my blockers. Whether this is in your research lab and you have a deadline coming, or this is at work and you have a deadline coming, even your like homework, if you are having something like really catastrophic happening, tell your professors. Yes, your classes might be huge, but they are still as invested in their students. They just don't know all of them. So if you are one of the lucky students, one of the students who goes out of their way to introduce yourself to your professor, that is game changing. And that's how you build repertoire with professors for the future. You just got to put yourself out there and say, hey, I'm Allie. I'm really excited to be taking your course. Go to the office hours. Even if you have nothing to ask them, sit there and just make sure they know your face, because that is huge. And it can really make a difference at the end of the semester. It can really make a difference. I don't want to say in your grades, but sometimes them knowing who you are can help you. So.
Oh, I just want to add, I totally agree. That's how I was able to get in on this book situation, which I shouldn't have even been able to be a part of. But like, it was coincidence, right place, right time, right professor, who knew that I had an ability to convey what we were doing in a very unique way. And because I have a geometric approach to certain algebraic problems, it was a great way, like everything kind of united. And we knew that with everything going online last year, back in January of 2020, we knew that we were going to have to change our entire approach to the math and to the physics. So it was right place, right time, right professor, you know, through conversations that I was able to get this position. And, you know, I've been working on it ever since. So it's been amazing. So I definitely agree with what Allie's saying.
Yeah, to echo that again, I definitely also had written here, people skills are shockingly the most important takeaway, I think, from my education. Even if you forget the details of your classes, which at some point you almost certainly will, I found that it's generally much easier the second time to relearn them when you need them. It's the being able to work with whoever you're put in with that is valuable. Like, nothing in engineering and technology gets done alone. And being able to effectively communicate what you're doing and work well in a team has been incredibly, incredibly valuable. Even in grad school, when people typically work alone, definitely not the case anymore. If you're doing like an engineering or tech degree, you absolutely need to be able to work with others and be fun to be around.
I would agree, but for math, it's still very solo. Like, I'm very much by myself. So that's why I'm like, in the tech aspect, I agree, because when I started, you know, working with games and trying to understand how that worked, I learned this is a group project from beginning to end. And I have to make that atmosphere be something that people want to be a part of, and be something that we can all contribute to and actually work on, and be from start to finish, be able to pull through. But in math, it's very much a solo project. And it's difficult at times. And that's when I realized, just to echo what you're saying, Jamie, like, but through friendships, through relationships, you can make something that is solo a duo project. You can actually bridge those issues and be able to find different approaches or find a way to make something come together.
And I was going to say, just adding one more part and kind of answering one of the questions that's in the chat right now. Networking is everything. You won't find out about those opportunities. You won't find out about those jobs. You won't find out about cool things to get yourself forward unless you talk to people. So school, I went through school basically functioning as a solo person. I didn't hear about those cool opportunities. And now I understand that if people know your name and you put yourself out there, whether that's through making content, whether that's through going to events, whether that's being supportive, it will bring opportunities to your life. And as Jamie says, 100% true. So many jobs and opportunities are never advertised. Even my job was not advertised that I'm doing now. So
yeah, I think this is all such invaluable advice, especially when you guys were all talking about just reaching out to your professor. You never know who they're going to know. And if you just express your interests or share your resume, you never know where that will get you. So you guys have all done so much in your career so far. I'm sitting here like, oh my God. So I want to ask, what has been the best part of your journey so far?
Oh, this is a tough one. I think from a very, very broad perspective, I think something that I've been really happy with and proud of is like finally being able to find balance in life. I'm really lucky. I'm surrounded by really brilliant, self-motivated, driven people who definitely push me to do better. And I think finally being able to find the balance of I don't need to be keeping up with all my brilliant peers. I can still have fun and make sure that I'm doing what I can do at a manageable pace without banning out, but still pushing myself has been pretty great. Like finally getting to that point where I know that I can push myself this much, but not too much more.
So I went through the crazy end, and Jackie knows this. I'm taking like 30 units. So that's why I'm like, not the best decision in life. The fact that I'm surviving this is crazy to me. The fact that I'm doing all of this is insane, and being able to, those are like credits. So 30 credits, that's like over altogether I'm in 16 classes. So it's crazy and it's insane, but it's because I added additional coursework because of the nonprofit that I'm building, and because we're doing a certain teaching method. So I'm doing additional courses that I really shouldn't have done, but it's okay. The whole point though is I really want to echo what Jamie's saying. Like part of the reason why I did it was because I was like, I'm going to be crazy and be the rock star. And I was like, maybe not. Like I look back and I'm like, I should have had a moment to breathe, and it's okay. Like it's okay either way. I'm just, by the time summer hits, I'm just going to go to sleep though.
I have to interject real quick and say that one time I was FaceTiming Lauren and she was like, I am on 2 different classes right now. I am in 2 math classes and they're on different Zoom calls and different computers. And both of the tests are at the same time and no one would reschedule if I'm saying this correctly.
Okay, so Jamie was also like this at MIT. So for context, Jamie and I are really close friends from MIT. Jamie was very much the same way. While she did major in aerospace and architecture, she was like, Allie, I could also do a 3rd major, but they won't let me. Because for me, I'm gonna be honest, like I don't know what my like peak best moment is, because to be honest, I have a very different experience throughout education, and my education was plagued with a lot of mental illness and anxiety, and so I can't say I had an excellent experience so far. So I'm still working to find that place, and that's totally fine, and I understand that. So just a very different experience. We have very mentally stable people, and then me.
I don't know if that's mental stability. I will say that, like for me, I mean, like taking all these courses is crazy, but I will say it does take extreme organization. And I really resonated with what you said, Jamie, when you were like, sometimes I don't know, like you might not know the class you're even in, but you're like, when you're in it, you're like, I'm here. You have to practice being present. And I definitely don't suggest doing anything like this. If you're ever interested in taking multiple courses, don't do it. But I think that you should just stick with what you're doing and try and, balance. Like I really love what Jamie was saying when she was like, what's important is that balance and getting to that part. And I'm headed there. It might take a moment, but I knew that this would be the only time that I would be able to do something like this because everything's online. So I was like, if I have 2 laptops, I can be in 2 different schools at the same time. Worst decision.
I don't even know what to say about that, but you're doing it and you're so graceful doing it. So off of that point and echoing what you said about being organized and, dealing with everything, maybe we can go into some discussion about mental health, because that's such a big topic. And at this point, I'm also going to pass it off to Ashini for the rest of the questions after.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's mental illness, love. I struggled. Jamie knew me in college, and she still, like, I've just gotten this under control, like, to a point where I am mentally stable. Jamie, I'm very different now. There's a lot of mental stability up here. Honestly, I struggled throughout all of college to the point where my parents were begging for me to take a semester off, and I said no. They made me quit doing the crew team for a semester, which really hurt me. I remember my sophomore fall, I basically lived in a basement of my sorority that I was in and pulling semi-all-nighters almost every single day. I wasn't eating enough. I wasn't sleeping enough. I was in an extreme state of mental illness. And I just thought this was it, because I didn't realize that there was better in life. And I didn't realize, and still now, as I work through mental illness, I realize, oh, like, life doesn't have to be like this. It can be better. And I am a huge advocate. Even if you don't think you need therapy, go to therapy. Even if you you're like, I'm mentally sick, go to therapy. Go to therapy. Like, I already know that if I ever have kids, I'm sending them to therapy as soon as they come out of the womb, because I understand how important that is to have a space to feel safe and secure and to be able to talk. And if you are someone going through mental health issues right now, yes, it is really hard. And I understand. I've been there. I know what it feels like, and it sucks. But no matter, as many people will tell you, like, this is it, it's not it. Go get the help that you need. And I know it's hard to get out there, and I know it's hard to get to the doctor, and it might take you months to get to a doctor, but as long as you're making those steps, that's what's most important. As long as you're taking those small steps to find the doctor, find the person. And literally last month, I was telling my psychiatrist, like, oh, like, things are going really well now, but here's this thing, but I think that's just something I have to work through, maybe because I have ADHD. And he's like, no, like, actually, this is something that's completely treatable with, like, your medication. Like, let's work on your medication. So things can always get better, and find people that you trust and can confide in to talk about these things with.
Yeah, that is, like, actually, so one of the questions we were sent before this was kind of, if you go back and do anything differently, what advice would you give? And so I'd written notes on this. And actually, one of the notes I'd written was, if you are in college, I can't speak a huge amount to high school, particularly in the United States, but certainly if you are in college or grad school and you're on the health insurance, there is very, very likely to be some kind of counseling or similar psychiatric services offered by your university's health center. That is something that I have used both at MIT and both at CU Boulder. My advice there would be, like, similar to Ali's, use it before you realize you definitely need it, as it were. As in, the service exists for you to use. If you're having a hard time, but don't think you're necessarily in crisis, you can still go and use it, and it's completely fine, and talk to a professional about whatever you want. You don't need to be diagnosed with anything. You're not taking that away from someone else. The resource is there for you to use. Even if you are not necessarily in a, like, again, just, you don't need to be, like, at breaking point or tipping point to use it, and neither is it a good idea to wait until you get to that point to use it. I think it's definitely also the case that it's a shame that people don't talk about how much they use counseling services, or my experience as an undergrad was that people generally didn't talk about it that much. My experience as a grad student at CU Boulder has been a lot more open, and this is definitely because the people in my lab I work with a lot more and see perhaps a lot more of, and the people I see day to day is very consistent, and maybe that's created a slightly more open atmosphere. But it definitely is the case that as I've gotten older, it's been more okay to be like, yeah, I'm seeing a therapist, or I'm going to counseling, or I'm using CAPS, which is the name of the service at Boulder. And I guess a lot more people than you think are using it is what I'd leave on.
Also, having a therapist is so great, because, like, if you feel like there's no one in your life that you could tell something, that something has happened that you're really excited about, your therapist will always be excited for you, and they're just like, so great.
I love this conversation because I mean, this was something that I also did in undergrad. I made sure that I was connected with, a psychiatrist and a psychologist because I'm on the spectrum. So that was something that I knew I needed and needed to have in my life. But it was very much stigmatized. And that being said, it's like it's strange to me to be in STEM and to have something that is so uniting also be something that's so divisive. Because a lot of us are struggling with different things, and so I've seen how everything's become much more accepted and much more understanding. And from when I first started school to now, professors are much more understanding. I love that you, Allie, were talking about like just tell them what's going on in your life, because when the way I was raised, it was like say nothing, just go to the class, don't talk about your personal life, just do it. But sometimes things come up, and professors have become more understanding, maybe not to an amazing point, not to the point where they're like, I'll reschedule this test for you, but like maybe to like, here's an additional 10 minutes, or like, here are additional resources for you.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Like, mental health has been very much stigmatized, I think, but as a generation, we definitely are moving forward, and there are a lot of resources available. Like at Penn State, we also have something called CAPS, and I think a lot of students have access to that, and it's completely free and available to any student. And I think those resources are really important. So kind of going off of this topic of mental health, and earlier everyone was talking about how you guys are balancing so many different things at once. So I guess my question for you is, how do you guys deal with burnout in your careers or in your academics?
Taking planned time out before you really need it would be my secret sauce. That and sleeping. There is actually a lot of research to support that getting a lot of and good sleep can be hugely beneficial to both physical and mental health. But beyond that, like I knew that there was absolutely no way I was going to be able to go straight from MIT to grad school. And taking those 2 years out was far, far more beneficial than I could ever have thought of. And I feel like going forward from that, making sure that I email my advisor and say, hey, like I'm having a hard time, I'm going to need to take this day off in a week from now. And like, even if I don't need it, being able to remember just to give yourself breaks can be really, really helpful. Or that is something that I have found that has worked for me. Hopefully that works for other people too.
Well,
You can.
I was just gonna say that when I was at MIT, I crashed and burned spectacularly. Like JB has seen me cry so many times, and it.
Me too.
Yeah, we've seen each other cry, like in our dorm rooms, we were just crying at each other. I crashed and burned spectacularly, and I did my entire master's degree just really suffering with a lot of burnout, and I lived alone, and it was just a really lonely experience. I felt like I had no one to talk to. I had like Jamie, who was in Chicago, and then my friend Marion, and those are all the people I felt like I still had to talk to. And to be honest, it's been a 3 to 4 year recovery now, and I just feel like I'm getting out of it. And to be honest, therapy, psychiatrists, and just not like, and taking the time that you need, prioritizing your sleep. Like I'm someone, Jackie literally sees me, I'm like sitting with her and it's 11 p.m. She's like, oh, we have a Zoom call at 11. I'm like falling asleep on the bed. Like, and I'm just like, I'm going home. I'm going to sleep. Like, I don't care. So just prioritize yourself and realize when you take those limits. And what's really great about having a really, an open dialogue early on is that when you do hit your limits or you feel yourself approaching your limits, you can express these issues to people and say like, hey, I think I'm doing too much. Hey, I'm really struggling with handling this one project. Like, I think that you might need to move it off to someone else because I'm not even contributing to it right now, which I had to do this 2 weeks ago. I literally went to my manager and said, I cannot continue to work on this project. It's not going to get done. And there are people on the team who have more time than me in order to execute this. So I need you to take me off this project. And being humble enough to know that you can't handle everything at once is super important.
I do agree with everything that everyone has said. I mean, at the same time, my experience was I didn't have a choice. For me to be able to graduate and go through my undergrad, I had to work 6 jobs, which meant that I had to balance everything. And so I'm trying to get to a point where I just cut everything that I've been doing, but like it was just my situation. So, and it was just because of a financial aid fiasco that put me in that situation where I wouldn't have been able to graduate with my degree if I had not done everything that I did, like with the school. So I had to learn how to manage my time to a point that it's insane. So, I mean, I highly, I just want to say, like, I don't advocate for what I had to do and how I manage my time. I don't advocate for this at all. But I have been able to help undergraduates in terms of learning how to balance time. So I would literally study for tests like day one because I didn't have the ability to like not work. So I was studying all the time, every day, everywhere I went. And so sorry, I'm reading your stuff in the chat. So I'm like, yeah, I'm a very extreme case. It's not all the time that you'll see a case like mine. There are working students though that feel like, you know, it's hard to balance. It's really hard to balance, you know, even one full-time job or even one part-time job and going to school full-time. It's really hard to balance those things. So I'm not going to take away from that either, or even just balancing a full schedule. It's a lot because our, you know, especially in STEM, it feels sometimes like you're competing with your classmates, and it shouldn't feel that way. It shouldn't feel like we're competing against each other. It should be like that we're all just trying to learn. But for some odd reason, there's something that happens when we're sitting in a classroom, the atmosphere changes. So for me, I would just say, like, if you learn from my experience, don't do it. Ask for help. And, you know, sometimes you're in a bad situation and you have to make it work.
You have to do a how to schedule your life session in the Discord, because I want to hear how you handled that, because I'm already floundering with my own life just between STEMPotential and my job. So like, I would love your help.
Well, of course. Yeah, I love scheduling. And what's funny is it's not like I have anything itemized. It's not like I have everything in some sort of PowerPoint. It's not like I have, you know, an Excel spreadsheet on how to do this. It really comes down to what do you care about most? And you prioritize those things and then you build everything around that.
Well, I am being cognizant of the time, and it is 4:08. So I was hoping you could each give one last piece of advice of what you would tell your high school or college self.
Find a mentor. Find a mentor doing something that you are interested in doing. And it's okay if you find more than one, because there are like 5 things that you are interested in doing. But that person can be a professor, an older student, like a senior when you are a freshman who is planning on doing a job or a PhD program similar to what you think you might want to do. And be bold about asking them for advice. Most people are going to be really excited that someone wants their advice and are likely to find it flattering and not annoying that you are asking them. Would be what I'd say to my former self.
My advice is very specific to me. But my advice to myself is quit the crew team and start going to more hackathons. There's a long, Jamie knows the long story, but I genuinely, like, I loved the experience of being on an athletics team, but I I feel like because that took up so much of my time, I didn't really get to find what I loved in tech as early on. And tech is a very unique situation because there's so many different fields and so many different jobs and so many different things you could do. And like, again, I didn't take a single class that would prepare me for my job I have today. And also just being, a lot of my closest friends are from the hackathon scene and being on Facebook and things like that. And so I would definitely say put yourself out earlier and get therapy. Get therapy.
I was just going to say, I really resonated with what Anna said in the previous session, failing forward. Like, one of the things that we talked about briefly is like, you know, some of us have many different interests. Like Jamie and I, we have many different interests, and somehow we found our fields. And, you know, failing forward is a concept that I actually am now going to like embrace. Like, it's okay. Like, it's okay if you're not the best at everything. You don't have to be this crazy person doing tons of stuff. You really don't. Sometimes it can be just like balancing and just doing like the one thing that you love in the best way possible. So that would be my advice to myself. It would just be like, it's okay if you're not perfect. It's okay if you fail, and just embrace that imperfection.
I'm speechless for so many reasons. What you just said, though, Lauren, to leave it off here because we have to move on, but accepting the fact that the imperfect is perfect has been a mantra that I've lived by and have to reiterate to myself a lot because it's a hard world to live in and there's so many amazing people. But even sitting here and hearing you all discuss like your insecurities or what has happened, you know, all I see is you all pushing through and still pursuing what you love on a day-to-day basis. So just seeing that is incredible. I'm so appreciative that you three could come today. I'll give Allie a hug.
I'm vaccinated. She's vaccinated.
I got vaccinated too, so air hug.
Vaccination.
Perfect. Love that. Oh, it's a
turkey.
You know what? We'll deal with that later. Please note that the recording will be on the STEMPotential Discord, hopefully in like a week when our tech mom gets to that, because I can't do that. I look forward to interacting with all of you on STEMPotential about this.
Is if people want to reach any of the speakers, how can they find you, Jamie?
At hamjamjam on Instagram.
Put that in the chat.
And Lauren, how could people find you?
Oh, I'm always available, so I always answer my phone.
You're always available.
I know you called me and I've been in class and I'm like, I'll answer.
But
like,
it's crazy.
But how could they find you?
I'm gonna put my email address and I'm also going to put my phone number because I honestly, text message is best if you want like a direct message or through the Discord.
Yes,
So,
I was also going to say, Lauren is incredible on the Discord. If you need math help, go on the Discord. She is.
I have been tutoring so many, I think I have 6 students that I've been working with.
On top of everything else.
You can find me.
Do you want to put it in the chat?
I'm at Ending with Allie on everything, including Minecraft. But don't DM me on TikTok because I did not give them my phone number because I am an insane person. So DM me on Twitter, Instagram, or just at me server mom. I'm server mom. So just, I'm there.
Well, thank you everyone again for coming. And a special thank you to all of the panelists. I'm going to watch this recording like 5 or 10 times or just before I go to bed every night. Give me a little peace. We will now take a 10-minute break and it'll be the last session, which is PhDs and PhD students, master students, and a researcher. It's going to be super awesome. So stay tuned.